Hi everybody, this is Kelly from The Truth in Story, and today is Lenormarch Day 16. We're over halfway there through the month, and I am back to do today's look at, I believe the cards we're looking at today are the Tower in the Garden. But before we talk about that, I want to, as a sort of the little bit of the tip of the day, because I try to do different tips, I want to take a peek at the card inserts in Lenormand decks. I do think that everybody should have at least one deck that has card inserts on it. A lot of them will just have 9, with a symbol next to it or something quite small. I do think having one kind of classic deck that has the full card inserts is useful to have. So a lot of the more classic looking ones, like this is more of a classic, I think this is based off the Dondorf, and this is produced by Lo Scarabeo. I think you can get it separately. It's also in a couple different kit boxes, and you can see it has beautiful full drawn playing cards in inserts. The Piatnik, which is the one I learned off of, again has beautiful full card color inserts. I think it's important to have them so they're red and black. You know, some have, I have a couple decks that have them, but then they're like all black like this. And so when you're just doing a quick scan, that to me is not overly helpful, especially if you're looking at a larger spread. So I think having one of these style decks is very helpful and important as you're learning, just so that you can pay attention to those things. Now I'm not going to go super deep into working with the card inserts, but I just wanted to at least give you a quick ways to start looking at that and paying attention to it. Now it's important to note that the Lenormand card inserts and the cards that they're on do not relate to normal playing card Cartomancy. So that's really important. And in both the Enchanted Lenormand Guidebook by Caitlin Matthews, which comes with the Enchanted Lenormand deck, which I don't use all that much, but I love this little guidebook. It's nice and handy. As well as her Complete Lenormand, she goes into this quite well and has some nice charts. For example, you can see here that traditional Cartomancy, the spade suit is quite the worst suit. It's the negative suit. It's just a bad suit. Bad things are happening. Not good. You think about the sword suit. But not in Lenormand. We have the tower, the letter, the garden, the anchor, the ship, the child, the bouquet, the lily, the woman. These are not super negative. You're going to find more negative actually in the wand suit, which would be the clubs. So it's kind of flip-flopped around. So that's important to note there. And they think, a couple things I read, people had suggested this is because they went off of German Cartomancy meanings versus the French Cartomancy. So that's kind of the guesstimate as to why they're so different than the traditional playing card associations. So that's important to note right off the bat, because if you try to read these like traditional playing cards, it's not really going to make sense to the Lenormand card that it's attached to. So just what you might want to jot down for your own reference, just to have a quick general idea, is for Lenormand, spades are about growth, activity, work, authority, business, public interest, and rewards. Hearts are very much like water: emotions, love, growth, trust, sociability, and encouragement. Clubs are about challenges, drawbacks, complications, consequences, and powerful forces. And diamonds are about enterprise, energy, strategy, luck, money, success, ancient wisdom, and decisions. These are the key words she gives. She gives more in the full complete, but that's just a basic idea of how they are. And I would just kind of jot yourself down a little bit of a note of what those mean. The other thing that she does note in terms of using them for yes and no, in strict Cartomancy, blacks are no and reds are yes, right? That's pretty much the way it goes. She does divide it a little bit more where hearts are yes, diamonds are maybe yes, Spades then would be maybe no, and clubs would be definitely no. And this allows there to be a little bit of subtle variation if you're trying to do a yes or no questions. I don't generally read for yes or no questions, but I know just because I don't doesn't mean other people don't, and so I'm trying to give you information that you can use, depending on whatever your reading style might be. So if you were to then, lay out three cards, the first thing I would do is read the card. So if the question was, am I going to get this job? I would first look at the Lenormand. We have the heart and the ring for commitment, and we have kind of positive movement forward, so that's a good thing. When we look to the playing cards, we have 2 definite yeses and 1 no. So the answer is most likely yes, that most likely that's going to occur. That there is still a little bit though of questionable there. It's not a solid yes, but it's a pretty strong yes that you can probably shoot for. Using the same question, if we got these cards, we'd say, okay, well, there's an invitation that's coming. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you take it, but there's an invitation. We do have some abundance going on. However, there is also the ship here, which can mean it's not anything that's going to happen anytime soon. And then when we look at the cards, from Cartomancy, we have 2 no's and a yes. We have 2 solid no's and a maybe yes. So more than likely the answer is no, or if it does happen, it's going to be quite a ways away. So you can see how that you can simply use that just to help add layers. I would first look to the cards themselves. So for the same question, we have thinking outside of the box with the fox, but something being not quite right. There's a decision that still needs to be made, and but we do have a little bit of luck here. But we have, but we have 1 no and 2 maybe yeses. So again, we've got a possibility there, but there's still some choices, and there's something that may not be right, and you better pay close attention to it before you make any deal in terms of signing a contract. So you can see how you can use those to help you determine, especially something like yes or no questions. The other thing is to look at them in, let's say you're doing your 9 card or even your 3 card. Given what I told you about, that in generalities what the suits stand for, if you have a predominance of one or the other, that is going to help you to this out of the way here. I'm getting stuff all over and knocking things down. Having a predominance of one suit is going to tell you something, right? So let's put out a 9 card. Now, there's a lot more to this if you have, multiples of a certain number, multiple kings, multiple queens. Those can all tell you things as well. I'm not going to go into this too deeply tonight. I will do another kind of lesson on the playing card insert, to go a little bit deeper. But for right now, I just want to kind of bring them to your attention so that you can start to kind of pay attention to them as you go. So if you do a 9 card, again, the first thing I would do is to look to the Lenormand cards. So I would say, okay, here we have the Moon card. We have a choice. So there is a choice that's going on that is going to, for me, if I was, let's say I was reading this about a business somebody was building up, that would be what I would probably stick in the middle for that. There would be a choice that still needed to be made. We do have the Clover, but we do have the end of something that may bring with it some harvest, but it could be, not a great ending. Still difficult here. And it may be something difficulty in a community way, in a larger group situation. We do have loyalty to this business, but something is eating away at that loyalty. We also have the fox that lets us know something isn't quite right, and we have the snake that could be saying, this isn't a straight shot. So we kind of look at it like this, right? And then we're going to kind of look to see what do we have the predominance of. Well, we have 2 clubs here. We have 1 spades. Now the spade is our business, you know, that's our positive business going here, growth, activity, work. We've only got 1 of them, so we certainly don't have a predominance. We've got a bit of a mix going on. We have some emotional context maybe being pulled in too much, and we also have, but we do have enterprise and energy, but they're to the corners and they're being impacted by some negative, more be wary kind of cards. So we might then look to these just to see what, if there's anything that the playing cards can tell us. If we did say a 9 card, that wasn't a great example, but you know, you can't really pick the cards. But if we laid down a cards where we had a predominance, say, of heart cards, that could tell us there's a lot of stuff going on here in the realm of the emotions, and that we would really need to pay attention to that. Sometimes too much emotion is not a good thing. Here we have a predominance of clubs, which are challenges and drawbacks. So we have the clouds, we have the mountains, we have the cross card here. We also have the bear, which isn't so much challenging, but you know, that's strength to get through these, but we still have major problem cards here that's going on, and so we would want to be paying attention to that and how we can offset it. So I would say that to just start to pay attention to the playing card suits or inserts, just start to pay attention to those that are cropping up and how you might do them. If you do yes and no questions, then you can start to use those playing card inserts in that way. So here we have a very positive card, but we have 2 spades, which are more difficult. These are maybe no's. Remember, the clubs are the worst ones. The spades are the maybe no's. But we have 1 maybe yes and 2 maybe no's, so it's not very clear, but it's probably unlikely at this time. And so, again, you can start to use it that way. So I would say, just if you have a deck in the next day or 2 that does have playing inserts, play around with that a little bit and see if you have either Caitlin Matthews' Enchanted Lenormand or her Complete Lenormand book. Probably any, I would assume any Lenormand book is going to have a section on the playing card inserts. You might want to take a peek at that and read more about it. But that's some interesting things there. Just remember, if you already read Cartomancy, like regular playing cards, you're not going to, they're not going to correlate exactly to that, and mostly the difference you see is between the clubs and the spades being reversed. So that's something to pay attention to. I've been studying playing card reading for a while, which correlates a lot more directly to tarot than the Lenormand ones do. So I have to remind myself when I see, you know, so many spades, that that's not the same thing as in Cartomancy. Oops, I guess I don't know why I put that away, because we still have to talk about the, I just said it, so I should know it, the Tower and the Garden. So let's find, oops, I think I might have passed the Tower. Nope, there's the Tower. And there's the Garden. Oftentimes you will see a fountain in the gardens, because they were formal gardens at that time. So they generally probably had a fountain in the center of their gardens. So here we have number 19 as the Tower and number 20 as the Garden. Now the number 19, it's important to note that this is not the same as the total blank. This is not the same as the Tarot Tower. Don't mistake it for that. And I really have a big pet peeve with decks that place lightning strikes on the tower, because that further ties it to the tarot tower card, and it's not the same whatsoever. If we check out Mr. Andy's list on the continuum of positive and negative, the tower is in the neutral category. So it is a neutral card. It doesn't have positive or negative connotations. It can just be a step back. It's about solitude. It's being up and above something, but it can also have understanding of institutions. So if you're looking at work situations, this could be more of a corporation versus a, working from home kind of environment, but it doesn't have any negative connotations there. The garden and just our quick ones are about social things, about many people. It's about community. It's about places that people gather together. Again, on our continuum of positive and negative, the garden is neutral, because groupings of people can be not so great and groupings of people can be great. It depends on what they're up to and what's around them. So when we put these together, we can look to the, like, for example, Caitlin Matthews in her book has the tower and the garden put together in this way. The tower and the garden might say a rest from outdoor work. It could be going to a park. It's kind of retreating. Well, where are you retreating to? Maybe to a park or something like that. It's about solitude and isolation, so it's going to be less about, going to a very, very busy place, and it's more than likely an outdoorsy place. It could be a garden. It could go hiking at a state park or something along that lines. Whereas when you switch it around, you would have a social gathering that may be along the lines of something that is institutional, or feeling isolated from society, or feeling stepped back or removed from society. And that isn't necessarily a bad thing. It would depend on, again, what the question was and what the cards were around that particular question. So, for example, let's pull out, I'm going to try to do it this way, because there's no way for me to know. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I've taken other random cards, and I'm going to mix the tower and the, just so we can see how they might come in together. Total setup, obviously this is not going to indicate a real reading, but I just want you to see if these might show up together. Okay, so we're looking, oh, well, this is, I guess, from our other one. So let's say we're still looking at our side business. We have our garden up here. So we have something, there's a problem going on in a social setting, and there's a choice that might need to be made if we're just looking at there in the, like that. If we were looking at it this way, we have something is being eaten, something in a social context being eaten away, and that this social issue is causing problems with this, let's say, this business that somebody is trying to start, if I'm using the moon card that way. So this, again, total made up spread here, but so we would have that going on. Well, something is eating away at the prospects, and it has something to do with the social setting. Something out in the community at large is causing problems with it, and there is a decision that needs to be made that may kind of alleviate some of that. But when we look here, we can see that something isn't quite right, and we may need to take a step back from society, maybe step back a little bit, get up above the situation so that we can make a decision in a way that maintains our loyalty. And maybe we may need to get advice also from a friend here, but we have that idea of something isn't quite right with this business opportunity, building their business right now. Something isn't completely right, and so we need to step back so that we can make a clear decision. So that's kind of a way you might use it within a 9-card spread. And then using our playing cards, we might look here and see, well, we do have 3 troubling cards. These are not to me completely negative, but they certainly are what I would consider to be neutral negative. So there's certainly warnings, at least pay attention. And we do have a negative card. So a third of the cards are a little bit troubling. And so we want to pay attention to that, certainly. We do also have some emotions being involved. We might have our emotions tied up when it does, when it's our heart business, when it's our business that we're trying to build from scratch and put our energy into. It very much can get our emotions tied into it. So we may need to step back away from that. So there's just some ways in which you can kind of look at things to see what's going on, and having it use the garden and the tower in context, I suppose. So let's see, I guess I didn't even answer the question. So let's see. There is a push and a pull between these two cards of being stepped back and of being social. Are you a hermit type or a social butterfly? Are you recharged by solitude or interactions? That's a very easy question for me. I am actually a hermit. I'm definitely, I am a sociable person. I enjoy in small settings and in small doses being with people, but I do not get recharged by being with groups of people. I will go out, get kind of drained from interacting with other people, and then I will need to step back into my home quiet space and get recharged that way. My sister at one time, one of my sisters had put up on Facebook a chart about introverts, and because I never could understand, because I'm truthfully quite engaging. That doesn't sound right. It sounds that sounds a little snob or a little full of myself. I'm engaged with people. I can engage with people on a bright, cheerful level. I enjoy being around people. I was always, like I said, I've said another, I was a cheerleader. I was in the band. I was in drama. I had a lot of friends for the most part. Most people liked me in school. Like, I was a very socially active person. But at the same time, I was quite the hermit. I was quite withdrawn in certain ways. I wasn't open to sharing all of my internal bits. I was much happier after being out and about to go home and be in my room by myself with a book. So I was always curious as to that, because I would never have looked at myself and said that I was an introvert. But this thing that she showed actually showed introversion, not in terms of you don't like people, but it's how you recharge your batteries. This is one of the big things why I think people should know how, in their birth chart, should know what their energies are and how you easiest recharge your batteries. Because I think that really can help you when you're feeling drained. If you're an introvert and you're feeling drained, going out isn't going to help that. And you're going to need to step back and recharge your batteries. The same thing with somebody who is an extrovert, who is very active and engaged in people, and that recharges them. Then those people going out and having a good time is going to charge them back up when they're feeling low. If you're heavily an air sign person, having intellectual conversation with somebody who stimulates your mind is going to recharge your batteries. If you're an earth person, you may want to go out and plant something and dig your feet and your toes into the ground, because that's going to recharge your batteries. So I think that those kinds of things are really interesting, and that's why the birth charts that I do are not like the full-on birth charts, but they really focus on elemental energy. And there are calculators. I will find one and put a link to it in the description box below. But there are little calculators that you can go to and put in your birth date, and it will just show your energy makeup. And so if you're really high in a certain energy, then that's the kind of things that you associate with it might recharge your batteries. If you're really low in another energy, like, if you're super low in the earth energy, you may have to work a little harder at grounding yourself. You may want to pay attention to that. So anyways, that's why I find it all so fascinating. But the question is, oh my goodness. am I recharged by? I'm more recharged by solitude. If I am recharged by interactions, it's more one-on-one interactions than going out interactions. So that is the answer to that. So I hope that this was helpful, and don't get freaked out, you know, for the new people out there, don't get freaked out by the playing card inserts. Just start to be aware of it. Just kind of skim those and see, or practice doing, just for fun of it, start practicing some yes and no questions with 3 cards, and so you can start to get familiar with, start to get a feel for them, just as something fun to do. But again, nothing here is meant to be stressful. You can take things and leave things depending on what you want to do with them. So I hope you all have a wonderful night, and I will see you tomorrow.